It's 8 o'clock. I'd like to call us to order for the Special Finance Committee of the Whole meeting. And would the clerk please call the roll?
Jay? Kibler?
Present.
Maxwell?
Here.
McGuire?
Here.
Michaels? Mitchell? Quisenberry? Rosales?
Here.
Schrader? Schwartz? Shore? Weibel? Alex? Anderson? Berkson? Carter? Cowart? Esri?
Here.
Harper? Harrison? Hartke?
Here.
Petrie?
Present. A quorum is present. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Second.
Mr. Esri motioned it, and Mr. Rosales is second. Any additions or corrections? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, public participation, I have no slips, so we can slip through that very quickly. Little humor? No, we're too tired. Okay. Why we had a break, or any board communications that you want to put on the record? Seeing none, I am ready to turn this over to Mr. Alex as Finance Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, we're here to provide direction to the County Administrator with regard to the draft fiscal year 2016 budget. I'm going to say absolutely nothing by way of introduction. We all know what's in this budget. We've been through a number of meetings where it's been discussed. If anybody has questions, feel free to ask. I'm going to start with the easy stuff first. Is there any objection to moving $88,476 of the reimbursement from public safety sales tax for utilities from public safety sales tax to the general corporate fund so that we can balance the public safety sales tax budget?
Where are you reading right
Proposing to move, we have $441,586 in the public safety sales tax fund, which is money to be given to the general corporate fund to subsidize the cost of utilities at the public safety facilities. I'm proposing to take $88,476 of that, which is the amount of the deficit in the public safety sales tax fund, move that over to general corporate now so that the public safety sales tax fund will balance. If no one objects to that, okay, Ms. Schwartz.
I'm not objecting to that, but I'm just thinking about the amount. I mean, the amount is simply based on the expected revenue, so it might actually be different. So how about if we just choose randomly whatever something is the close amount and then just move that line item? So, for example, which one is it? Salaries and health insurance costs for the lieutenant, which is $89,525. Simply because otherwise you're going to get $2.50 left somewhere. You know what I mean? Like you're moving an amount that's based on an estimate that may or may not actually balance it, as opposed to just taking a line item.
It will balance the budget. The entire budget, obviously, is an estimate at this point, but by cutting that reimbursement to general corporate for utilities costs, you will balance the 2016 budget for public safety.
No, I understand it. I'm just thinking as a general principle, it makes more sense for me to take a line item saying from now on, this thing belongs to public safety, this thing belongs to general corp. I don't care either way. I mean, I understand what you're trying to do, but it may or may not end up balancing the public safety because we don't really know. And then next year we're going to like, why did we move this exact amount? So
I guess I would argue that that's what we've done in years past. We've set that reimbursement essentially at the level that we felt that the public safety sales tax could bear, and that has varied from as much as 600,000 or 700,000 to the current level. So I would argue that that's
so
sort
we're
of
not
the
reimbursing for the whole thing?
no, it's a
okay.
partial reimbursement as
Fine,
it is.
Okay, ignore my comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on that? Would someone make a motion to recommend that we do that? Mr. Shore and Ms. Schwartz. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll have Deb do that. My second item is, does anyone object to restoring the $5,000 to the Veterans Assistance Commission out of the general corporate fund budget? Would someone care to make a motion to do that? I think Mr. Harper and Mr. Weibel I saw. Any discussion, comments, or questions about that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We will give direction to Deb to do that. That's all I got. So I will open the floor for discussions, motions, comments, or any other actions regarding the fiscal year 2016 draft budget. Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you. During the May meeting of the subcommittee of the Justice and Social Services Committee of the County Board, Connie Kaiser of the Juvenile Detention Center and Donna Kaufman of the READY program testified concerning the loss of funding for a clinician who worked with a severely disturbed youth as they moved between the JDC and the READY program. When the program was funded, a clinician was available to counsel troubled youth with same-day service. Ms. Kaiser indicated she had kept verifiable statistics on the program's success. The subcommittee was told the program cost about $50,000 a year and could be reinstated for slightly more than that. In addition, recent testimony before the county board has verified the current state budget crisis as having a significant effect on service providers and programs within this community. With this in mind, I offer the following motion. I move the Champaign County Board requests the Champaign County Mental Health Board find $53,000 within its proposed FY 2016 budget and reappropriate that money to its contributions and grant program line with an emphasis to focus on reestablishing the effective program of employing a clinician to serve the youth at the Juvenile Detention Center and the READY program, or any other similarly effective program, and that the bottom line of the proposed FY 2016 budget remain unchanged at revenue to expenditures equal to a negative $55,881.
Motion was made by Mr. Maxwell and seconded by Mr. Kibler. You're going to have a brief discussion with Deb here about what this means. Is this direction to, it's not direction to you, it's direction to the Mental Health Board. So what, does this have any implications? I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out whether this has any implications on the budget here, since it doesn't change the Mental Health Board's bottom line. I mean, it sounds like a request, it sounds like direction to the Mental Health Board.
In the form of a request.
I mean, so is the motion to forward that request to the Mental Health Board and the director of the Mental Health Board?
I think the reason...
I'm having trouble deciding who needs to act on this.
I think the thought was that I would communicate this request to the Mental Health Board and work with the Mental Health Board on the line item changes, which would result in an additional $53,000 being placed in the contributions and grants line item, which means that money would go directly to services rather than other expenditures of the Mental Health Board.
And with...
Which will require changing their budget at this point.
And with a voluntary commitment on their part to spend it on Program X, or to spend it on this particular, on the clinician for the youth services clinician.
Or this or other relevant program.
Any discussion, comments, or questions? Ms. Petrie.
Well, this is just information for my colleagues on the board. I had posed several questions to the state's attorney's office. One of them was a question whether during the time period when the county board is in the process of approval for the next year's budget, if the county board has the authority to move items within other departments or agencies' budget. When I had read the statute for established boards such as 708 and a 377, it was my understanding that that was accurate, but I asked for assistance from the state's attorney's office, and the opinion from the state's attorney's office is indeed the county board does have such authority at the time when we're working on the budget for the next year. I want to make that clear. There are some additional pieces of authority a county board has from that statute, but because we are a PTEL county, they really do not come into play for our county.
And I guess I would add to that that there are some competing legal theories advanced by the Mental Health Board, which has led the county administrator to request an opinion from the Attorney General about the scope of the county's authority, or the county board's authority with regard to the Mental Health Board, and it may be some time before we know the answer to that. So I think we have to proceed without having a final word on what exactly our authority is. At this point, I guess you could argue the best information we have is what you just cited from state.
Right, but I thought some of the question posited to the Attorney General had to do with the budget transfer situation as differential from what the authority is for a next year budget. And my question only had to do with the next year budget.
Deb, unless you want to jump in, I guess at this point I would say it's clear as mud.
Both questions have been submitted to the Attorney General, both the question regarding the budget transfer and secondly, the question of during the budget process. But the opinion that you have from the state's attorney regarding the budget process, just as the opinion you have from the state's attorney that indicated that you had the authority to exercise your discretion over the budget transfer, that similarly you have the authority to align how expenditures are set up in the budget as you approve it.
So just to make sure I understand, and Mr. Maxwell and Mr. Kibler, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a motion to direct the county administrator to request to the Mental Health Board that they allocate, can we have the dollar amount again? 53,000 even to, can you restate the description of the program?
I can reread it, or I can...
Just a description of the use, requested use.
The requested use would be to either fund and reinstitute the program at the JDC and Ready program, or to allocate this money for needed programs and programs that are currently suffering from the state cutback.
So in effect, spend 53,000 more than they're currently spending on grants and contracts, on the grants and contracts line.
That's correct, but reduce the spending that they propose to make in the various line items within their FY 2016.
With the net result being the same as is listed in the current budget.
Same bottom
right?
line, that's correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Mrs. Schwartz, did I see your hand there?
Yeah, it's just a question. So which item are we, line item are we suggesting they take it from? I mean, are we saying that they should not take it from one program and move it to the other? Because I think that's your intent. Is there, or what
My feeling is that's within their discretion as to which line items within that FY16 budget they choose to take it from. And there are several areas that they could obviously consider, but again, that's not my authority, or I'm not trying to micromanage that aspect of it. I think they have plenty of discretion within their line items. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm sorry, Mr. Hartke.
Yeah, with the discussion that went on during the previous meeting, it sure feels to me like we've taken on micromanagement of the Mental Health Board budget here. That we are going to tell them where their line items go, switch it around on, and do it after they've submitted it to us, and we had initial meetings on it and kind of cram it in at the last meeting. I'm not sure what the goal here is. I think when we talk about listening to experts, I think that that's exactly what the Mental Health Board is. They have come to us with a very tight budget that I'm sure that they look at with a very careful eye as to what their priorities are. They've come to us with it. I don't see us micromanaging other units of government in any way similar to this. But this is a provider of important services, and I think that the people elected to it, or excuse me, appointed to it, should get the respect of having their opinions respected, as do those who speak should have their words respected. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, I guess I'll go last. I appreciate, I'm sorry, Ms. Court, go ahead.
Okay, I'm trying to find out if this will come out of the money that we give mental health or the money that's already in the mental health board. What is that? Where would it come from?
It would come from the mental health board's tax levy, I guess is the best answer to that question. I mean, they get their tax levy will be a specific amount, and what the request is that they take 53,000 of that amount and spend it on this instead of on something else they were going to spend it on.
Oh, I don't know if we should do that because we have other levies around here and we are not telling them what to spend their levy on.
Mr. Shore.
Here we go. There we go. All right. All right. So I'm fine voting with a recommendation or a suggestion, but I don't know who all has gone to mental health or developmental disability board meetings, but they have a granting cycle, and I don't think it would necessarily be fair to people who submitted their grant proposals during the cycle if we were going to suggest something like this out of cycle.
Mr. Kibler and then Mr. Maxwell, if you still want to.
Just that what you are appropriating now is for the granting cycle for July 1st of next year, which they have not yet even established the parameters. So you're well in advance of their granting cycle.
Mr. Kibler.
And to clarify, and I apologize, Mr. Maxwell, if this is incorrect, but I believe that the idea of this is to ask the Mental Health Board to consider such an option, not demand or force. So it's more of a request that we've seen public participation come in and say, this is something that we think would be very valuable and we would like you to consider it. You can tell us to go fly a kite, but inevitably we'd like you to consider it.
Mr. Maxwell?
That's correct. This will actually not impact the grantor agency, or the agencies that receive the money, except it could actually increase the amount of money they receive, and they desperately need it. The items that we're proposing to cut would be within the budget line items that they use to operate with. And I do not feel like, in my own mind, it would be that detrimental to them. But again, that's their decision to make. And this is simply a request. Thank you.
Mr. McGuire, I think you were next.
I don't think it's an issue of micromanagement as much as influence and oversight, and I think that's a responsibility of the elected officials of the county. And we have people that are on these boards, and whatever board that we might be assigned to or asked to be part of, whether it's mental health or health department or any others. And there's been some questions about what happens on this board, and that's why we've been discussing it, and that's why I think this might be appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Anybody else? Mr. Jay.
Well, just very quickly, the program that was being operated out of the Juvenile Detention Center had some really positive results. I can't go into them because I'm old and forgetful, but I do remember that the gals that was doing that, just an outstanding job, and it was a very valuable program, and it got swept away in the process.
Thank you, Mr. J. Anybody else? Ms. Cord again.
Who was funding the program before, mental health or,
Mental health.
okay.
Clarification, it was the Mental Health Board, and the money went to Community Elements, and then Community Elements delivered the funding to them.
I'm sorry, yeah, the funding, I thought you asked about funding. The funding was from the Mental Health Board. Community Elements was the contractor who provided the person, the counselor, the clinician.
And Community Elements is the one that cut the funding? or
No, the
mental health?
Mental Health Board reallocated the funding away from that program. Anybody else? Okay, I guess I'll go last. I appreciate the spirit in which the request is made. It was very frustrating listening to that hearing before Ms. Bergson's subcommittee and hearing about the loss of that program. I would certainly like to see the funding of that program restored, but on this one, I've got to go with Mr. Harkey. I'm not going to, in 2 meetings, 1 hour apart, both oppose and favor micromanagement, and I think this falls into that category. We have authority over the Mental Health Board through our appointment power, and beyond that, unless they're doing something blatantly unacceptable, I think that we should let them do their job. So I will oppose this. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Nay. I need a division on that. Ayes, please raise your hand. Count 9 nays. I count 9. Motion fails. I'm sorry. Keep your hands up. Somebody else who knows how to count want to count? Ten? Or do we agree there was 9 there were 9 ayes? Okay, the motion fails. Do you have any other? I'm sorry, Mr. Quisenberry? Motion would have failed on ties. I was aware of that, but you made me count again. I don't. I'm going to ask for a revote based on the confusion. It would make this a lot easier if somebody wanted to call for a roll call. Thank you.
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Chair can always ask for a roll call, by the way.
Well, the chair's asking for a roll call because I can't count, apparently. Let's go.
Jay? Yes. Kibler?
Aye.
Maxwell?
Yes.
McGuire? Yes. Michaels? Yes. Mitchell? Aye. Petrie? Yes. Quisenberry? Yes? Nay. Rosales?
Yes.
Schrader? Schwartz? Shore? Weibel? Anderson? Bergson? Cowart? Esri? Harper? Harrison? Hartke?
No.
Alex?
No. Motion carries 11 to 10. That was easy. Do we have any other issues before the Finance Committee tonight with regard to the fiscal year 2016 budget? Mr. Kibler.
I do have a question. I know that there were, on the decision point side, there were only a couple that we've talked about tonight. I can't remember if the remaining items are off or on. So, for example, the mental health fund items, the GIS fund items, and so forth.
Deb, do you want to give a quick summary?
Well, my response is you just dealt with mental health fund as to what you want done with the mental health fund. So that's what we will do. And you are now okay with the mental health fund other than the change that you just requested. GIS fund,
I'm sorry, Deb, and that's with the two positions in or out?
that's with the two positions in. Because they were in as presented to you.
Okay, so we're still talking.
Right.
GIS fund?
GIS fund, the GIS Policy Committee will meet October 18th and review the results of the cost analysis study. And upon their acknowledgement that they believe the cost analysis study is appropriate, then we will bring to you the results of that study and allow you to determine whether or not to increase the fee. It's really not theirs to determine whether or not to increase the GIS fund fee. It's your determination, so that will come to you in November. That is more of a long-term issue anyway. We're just saying that moving forward, the current fee structure is not sustainable to continue sustaining the GIS consortium in the manner in which it's been sustained by the county since its inception. And the other issues listed under General Corporate Fund are as much for information as anything. The General Corporate Fund, the one decision you haven't made is you will still have just around an $80,000 revenue positive, and do you want that to be appropriated to the contingent line, or do you just want the budget to be revenue positive?
Do we want to run through the other items real quick? Just so we
Sure.
understand what's in, what's
I
out.
mean, if you leave the budget revenue positive, then essentially at the end of the fiscal year 2016, you will have rebuilt a portion of the fund balance. Capital facilities projects currently budgeted at $532,261. In November, the Facilities Committee and the County Board will receive the results of the Facilities Conditions Assessment, and you'll get a better documentation of how appropriate that funding is, how much too little, or, yeah, I'm sure it's not too much. The $175,000 budgeted for ADA compliance, similarly, you will receive a better estimate of what those costs are anticipated to be in November with that report from Bailey Edward. The Capital Asset Replacement Fund budgeted at current only. So I can tell you that we have just added another $352,363 to future years that we are not reserving in this year for items that will be replaced in future years. And I can tell you that in fiscal years 2017 and 2018, the sheriff has major law enforcement systems that are going to need to be replaced, that his radio system and his MDCs and his squad cars, which combined are probably over $500,000 in those 2 years. You address the veterans assistance issue. At this point, the property tax freeze for next year, I believe, is off the table at the state. I think it's highly likely that that will be an issue for the 2017 and 2018 budgets. And then we are in the process of doing a study on the court security fee, as you approved last month, and we'll bring back to you at a later date, probably also in November, and whether or not there's an opportunity to increase that fee and what that might generate in additional revenue for next year. On public safety?
And public safety, I think it's obvious, but why don't you go through them anyway?
Okay. You know, what you decided tonight is we will leave the lieutenants, the funding for the lieutenant in the correctional center as a transfer from public safety to general corporate. We will maintain the $100,000 grant for reentry program services, the funding for the specialty courts coordinator at $59,919, and the funding of $234,105, which is the 5% set aside for juvenile justice prevention programs, currently the Youth Assessment Center.
Jeff, did that get to your questions?
It did, so basically everything's in.
Everything that was in when we talked about it at the budget hearing is in.
Okay.
Be happy to entertain any other comments or discussion or motions at this point. Mr. Weibel.
I move to adjourn.
I would ask County Administrator, do you feel like you've gotten sufficient direction?
Yes, the budget will include all of the decisions that you made tonight. And then that is considered to be what this board wants to provide as direction for the 2016 budget. And we should be able to move forward from there.
And that draft budget will be brought to the Committee of the Whole for Finance meeting in October?
Yeah, the draft budget will definitely be completed by the October board meeting to be received and placed on file, but we will bring you the summary overview at finance.
So we are not at the final decision point yet. I would also note, we will probably have a discussion of the salaries for non-bargaining unit employees with regard to that recommendation. We've been monitoring that with regard to what we expect the state situation to be, and we may have a discussion of that at a closed session at the October Finance Committee of the Whole. Anything else? If not, we will hear Mr. Weibel's motion. Did anybody second his motion to adjourn? Ms. Bergson, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries, and we are adjourned. Thank you.